hello, everyone. We now have the last panel, which for me really brings everything we have talked about to a head within the world of omnichannel. We had Simeon there talking about mobile operators and what's been going on in the world of mobile operators. And we know at the end of the day, it's about trust. And subscribers need to feel that trust. But there is a life cycle to this, beginning to end, and actually goes in a circle. It never ends, because once a brand has a customer, they want to retain that customer. And earning that trust can quite often take a long time, but losing their trust can happen with an absolute instant. As human beings, it's the way we've been built for absolutely ever. We can have 99 great experiences with a brand, with an individual, whatever it might be, whatever situation, but you have one bad experience. Unfortunately, it's the way most of us humans are built. We remember that. And we all know the stats from a variety of sources. You have a negative customer experience with a brand or with an individual, and people have no problem relaying that. So how do we avoid all of that? We need to maintain that trust. So there's real necessity for an integrated approach to the customer lifecycle and the verification and the trust. So we've got John Bruner, who's the CEO of Aegis Mobile here, who's kindly sponsored the session. John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking about this. We have Catherine Maguire, who was on a little bit earlier, talking about RCS and RBM, product manager with BT. Come on, it's the last one. Need some energy here. We have Carlos, who's the co-founder and chief revenue officer of Enabled, a CPaaS provider. So fantastic that you're joining. And joining us online is Mr. Anurag Agarwal. Anurag, are you here?
Hello. Hi, very good evening to everyone. Am I loud and audible?
We can hear you, but we can't see you at the moment. Can we? Yes, yeah, we can.
Now you can.
So fantastic. So there's one. Sam, can we pop the banner up on the sides? Yeah, they're coming. The banner will be up on the sides because there's one little change. So John you're still with Aegis Mobile, are you not?
I think so. I hope so.
Catherine, you're still with BT,
Indeed.
as far as you know. Carlos?
For sure,
yeah. Yeah, I'm still with MEF. But Anurag, would you like to say who you are and who you're with and what you do?
Okay. You're scaring me now. I don't know what's showing on the panel, but I'm hoping it's what's the up and coming. So
it's there now. The banner. Go for it.
So I guess firstly a hi to everyone in the audience. I think I saw my friend Marie in the audience. So if that's her, then special hi to her. So I have till yesterday I was working with another large CPaaS player by the name of Tanla Platforms, and starting today I have joined another one which is quite well known, especially in the MEF circles. We are extremely active. So I've joined Globe Teleservices as the Chief Growth Officer, looking into a number of different growth related initiatives across the CPaaS ecosystem. So it's wonderful to have it's wonderful to get an opportunity to represent your new company on your very first day. So thanks, James, and thanks everyone, and looking forward to today's session. Thanks.
Yeah, but Anurag isn't nervous. He's done this before. He's spoken on MEF panels, and he's got rather a lot to say. So it's our job to close off this event and bring everything together. John, can you explain who Aegis Mobile is? First of all, my pronunciation, how do you pronounce it? Is it Aegis or Aegis? How should I pronounce it?
Well, we hear both, but Aegis is probably predominant.
Okay, Aegis Mobile.
So Aegis was the shield of Zeus, by the way. Okay. For those that don't know, so it's a Greek term. It had special properties to protect, if you will. I didn't name the company. The company was named before I began running it. But so Aegis has been around for about 16 years, and we started in the premium SMS space, providing lifecycle compliance services. And to kind of explain that story, we started by intercepting live advertising and live opt-in experiences for premium SMS in the US market and evaluating them for compliance. And we would find bad actors and we would shut them down. And a week later, they would come back as a new business. So we realized we should start vetting and registering every business that's going to get on a channel to do premium SMS. And in doing so, when we would shut them down, we had a lot of data on that company. If they came back as a new company, we could actually relate them to the old company and prevent them from doing the whack-a-mole. So then we realized, well, if we really want to intercept everything that's out there in the market, or at least know what's out there in the market to be able to intercept it, we needed to create a campaign registry platform and evaluate campaigns before they went live for compliance to make sure that the brands that were running these campaigns knew what compliance was and then allow them into market. Of course, then we go out and intercept them to make sure they hadn't changed. But one of the things that we realized is that it's very inefficient, and oftentimes you'll miss things. You can't depend on just intercepting things in market to ensure that the consumer experience is compliant. The best thing to do is to look at the transaction data. And so we developed anomaly detection, pattern analytics, looking at revenue and purchases and transactions, looking at refunds, looking at complaints, and then driving that information back to what should we intercept in market. But most importantly, all of that data that we got in terms of transactions and refunds and complaints, all of the evidence we collected from in-market could be tied back to a campaign that could be tied back to a brand. And then we created bad guy databases that prevented these brands from coming back in. One last thing that was very important about all of this is by creating an upfront registry, what we also found is that brands would create hundreds of companies to run hundreds of campaigns to stay below, for example, refund thresholds, because that was something that would indicate a potential problem in this world, right? And so by creating the registration platform and creating the relational analytics of brands, we could tie those hundreds of companies together and look at their behavior as a whole in the market. So we wound up creating a number of different services at different points of the life cycle of, registering a brand, registering their campaign, going live in market, and what were the business results. And the point is that the data was fed across each of those types of compliance, programs. So, Aegis has been pushing very hard into messaging. We've been in messaging in Canada for 10 years, providing compliance. But more recently in the US, we're expanding into messaging, and we're seeing a lot of great compliance technologies. And one of the speakers that just was here before us is one of those great providers of services to protect consumers. What we're advocating here, though, is that when we find, websites that are links that are creating harm to consumers, if that data can come back, for example, to the registry, we can actually do deep dives on the brands, figure out all the companies that they're running, figuring out all the websites that they own, figuring out all the IP addresses they're operating off of, and we can then feed back a lot more data to the filters. And so what I'm advocating as a life cycle, process is, how do we get all of these great technologies that exist to protect consumers to begin communicating? Because there's power in leveraging the data that we all engage.
I think that's very clear. John, thank you very much. Question, though, is from all the data points, you must collect so many data points, everything like that. Is there one which stands out to you as being the most important? When you're verifying a brand or anything like that, is there? I know you have to collect so many different things to verify, is the brand real? For example, it could be the website, so many other things. Is there one which stands out as being absolutely the most important?
So it's interesting. For us, we operate in many channels, right? So, messaging is about spam and phishing. Direct carrier billing is about payments. RCS is about, brand representation, logos. Also could include payments, could include location services, geo. So for us, first off, creating an identity that this company really exists and having trace back to a real company when they do harm is the number one priority. But in terms of evaluating whether or not they should be in a specific channel, we have to look at the history of their behavior, their integrity, to determine, can they be in a payments channel? Does it make sense, right? So to me, it's more about what are you trying to do. And messaging, like I said, what we're really trying to do is establish some sort of trace back so that we can actually, number one, prevent whack-a-mole, prevent Hydra with multiple companies working together or one company creating multiple companies to create fraud, but then also tie back their actual operational behavior in that market back to that brand.
Fantastic. So, Catherine, we yesterday had a panel looking at the whole area of fake accounts in social networks, many different areas you're colleague from BTE, Alistair Fraser, was on that panel. So you're very familiar, obviously, with what you're doing. And we heard about the great work and the cooperation that's going on with the mobile networks in the UK, in that area. So you provide SIM swap detection services and things like that. You're from a mobile operator in a country where clearly there is a good level of cooperation, all done in a nice antitrust way, may I add, coming from MEF, to help provide solutions which ultimately help this protection, help with the verification required for this holistic life cycle approach to security. What's your take on what's going on, perhaps generally with other operators? Because you've been around the community a long time. You've seen, you can see what's going on around the world in other countries. There may not be such a joined up approach.
I don't think, to be honest, I can only really speak for the UK at the moment, but I do think it does seem to be a subject that's at the forefront of organizations' priorities. I know that at BT it's discussed on a daily basis, and I think consumers are much more aware of wanting to have that protection from the people they put their trust in terms of comms. Like the presentation we got from Sim, there is like almost a civic responsibility to provide these services. And talking from like an RBM RCS perspective, which is the thing that I focus on, we are determined to make it a clean channel and we're taking advice from the likes of Aegis. I pronounced that wrong. To understand how, as the channel evolves, we continue to keep it as safe as we can, and we want to learn from the mistakes that might have taken place in the SMS world. I mean, it's great that it's a channel that's free, but we need to get that balance right between prevention of this kind of protecting the consumers that put their trust in us and making the channel profitable. And I think that's a conversation that's going on across all the UK operators in these groups. And I'd imagine, I don't know what's happening in other regions, but I think in the UK, it's definitely a priority for EEBT, and it seems to be for the other networks as well.
Great, thank you. Anurag, over to you. So you live in Delhi, you live in India, a country with 1.4 billion people, and this whole area of trust in messaging is absolutely massive. We know RCS was switched off in May because of these issues. There are rumors that it might come back. I was going to say next month, but next month is actually this month. So before the end of the year, who knows? We will hopefully find out, and hopefully RCS will be making a return to the Indian market. You've got the situation with WhatsApp, where I know there's a lot of fraud in WhatsApp channels at the moment as well, but WhatsApp is massively used in India by businesses as well. And of course, SMS yourself, you've been personally involved in the fight against spam and fraud in SMS channels. So the key thing, it's very, very easy to go overboard, possibly in terms of regulation, in terms of being too hard in cracking down on fraudsters. How should we as an industry approach this whole area of false positives, not blocking legitimate traffic, legitimate businesses? So in this whole scheme of things, we have got to remember it's not just major brands. There are millions, hundreds of millions of small and medium-sized businesses. And it could be all too easy to block a legitimate business who does not have that track record. They have not been in business for 5 years. They don't have 5 years of accounts. They haven't had that same domain name for 5 years. They haven't had the same business phone number, etc. They're brand new. How do we, as an industry, generally in the world of messaging and anything else, stop these false positives?
Right. So, James, you're right that the issue of spam and fraud is extremely prevalent, especially in India. I mean, literally, we've had a whole Netflix series, and we've had a season 2 also, I think, recently around this entire issue of spam and fraud, where OTPs are leaked and frauds of all sorts of monetary and banking and financial frauds happening. I think as an industry, there are many steps which can be taken. For example, if we look into what was implemented in India a couple of years ago by a regulator, TRAI, I mean, it was a mandate. Finally, it had to be pushed down the throats of operators and enterprises, and only then was there adoption, because it's 1.4 billion people, was the entire blockchain regulation, which is called distributed ledger technology. Now that, something which I think when John was mentioning about that, there is a lot of focus on trying to ensure that the end-to-end visibility is there of any message. The entire trace is available. Through blockchain, one is able uh, uh, to track right from the source, the enterprise, down to the intermediary, telemarketer or aggregator, and down to the terminating operator and the consumer. The entire thing is recorded over blockchain. There are a couple of other markets where I've personally seen that blockchain is starting to become popular. Israel is one market. Saudi Arabia I'd visited last month. That's another large market. South Africa, Indonesia. So it seems that blockchain is something that is coming up in a big way. We at GTS also have GTS Tech Labs, where one of the products focuses around blockchain, which we call TextChain, and that helps manage issues around these spams and frauds and registrations which occur. So this is something which is quite up and coming. Over and above that, I can say that the MEF has its Trust in Enterprise Messaging chapter, and within that we have the Code of Conduct. So I always humbly take any stage to humbly appeal that that everyone should be a mandatory signatory of that. That contains a number of good codes and practices which help ensure that every member of the value chain, whether it's the originator, the carrier, or the end terminating operator and the end consumer, what roles can all the intermediaries and the enterprise play in helping bring that trust in enterprise messaging? So I think these are some of the things which are happening in this space at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add one?
Please go ahead. We'll come to Carlos. Yeah.
So in the United States, we've launched 10 DLC. So text enable your long code, right? And we've created an automated registration platform where the brands come in through the CPaaS. The CPaaS then, once they register the brand, it gets sent to Aegis through API. Aegis actually does an identity verification that the company legally exists in the country that they're from, and that they're in good standing. And if they want to do high throughput, they get a background check. The background check results in a score for the company. The score determines how many messages per second, per minute, per day, or whatever it is that they can actually send on the network. Now that's all, fine and dandy in terms of protecting and limiting, for example, unknown companies from coming in and doing harm, because anybody can stand up a company and be doing messaging in 6 months or 2 months or whatever it is. But here's the thing that I'm pushing that's relevant to what was just said, and that is I want to get feedback from the industry about message performance of all of these companies that we're registering, which are hundreds of thousands. We've done 150,000 this month. So it's high volume capability, low friction. But I want feedback so that if we have companies that are doing good messaging over a period of time, they can move to higher throughputs, right? So it's a behavior-based, instead of using a stick, we're providing carrots based on good behavior.
John, I'm going to come back to you.
In fact, John, sorry, just to add that even WhatsApp, I think, is implementing the same feature where they throttle the texting capacities based on how the trust increases in a brand. So that's something which multiple channels seem to be adopting.
Yeah. So a company's risk score should be a live, continuous thing, right? For bad or for good. Because the idea is to get more messaging going that's clean and good for the industry and great for customers.
Carlos, could you explain, enabled, what you do as a business, where you sit in this whole ecosystem and value chain? What do you do?
Yeah, basically we are a technology company. So we are a technology enabler. So we help service providers with tools, platforms, functionalities, or APIs that they can integrate in their own platforms, or they can get the full, let's say, solutions using their current telco infrastructure. For example, in this case, their SMS or messaging infrastructure. So very much focused on SMS and messaging and providing the software that they require to succeed in the market. So one of the cases that we actively do is helping them to transform their what we call traditional telco business into a SaaS business. So we are helping them to move into a SaaS ecosystem where they not only provide, let's say, the connectivity, the messaging routes, the voice routes, but they also provide functionalities to retailers, enterprises, or other service providers. And in this, let's say, in this topic on protection and what we...
That was my next point. So what are you doing with regards to that? Because if I'm coming to you for one of your solutions, one of your...
So what we are doing are different, let's say we have three different tracks. One track is starting by offering the service provider or the enterprise or even the retail with a functionality to do KYX, we call it. So what does it mean? They can use an API to validate the enterprises that are going to use the services. Let's say the brands that will use messaging services or SMS services. They can also let them
know your sender. Is that sender?
No, it's basically we call it KYX because they can.
Sorry, X.
Could be could be a brand, could be a customer,
right?
Could be an enterprise, or could be So that's why we call it X. So the API is there, so they can use it for doing this verification. But of course, it depends. We don't do the verifications. It's on their hands to do the final process of the verification, right? So we provide the technology. That's one, let's say, track we do on the product side. The other one is on the moderation and inspection. So it's content inspection and moderation, which means that once you have, let's say, validated a brand, a retailer, an end subscriber as a verified, let's say, party, then some of our customers, they would like to moderate the content, meaning they would like to only allow validated or verified content to be sent to some of their subscribers. So what we do is basically we do homomorphic analysis, and then we detect when the text has been replaced and when is not coming from the original source. Let's call it the brand. It's not generated by the brand, but it has been modified either by some characters, letters, let's say words, or even the sender ID, of course. So by doing this, how we help our customers is because we don't have traffic. We are a technology company, but we see behaviors on the traffic that is going and is passing through our platform. And by doing that, let's say our customers have, let's say, they're more they can secure their traffic as verified if they do inspection, and also they do moderation of that traffic.
But John, what happens if we don't have a track record? Say the five of us here thought, we've got a great idea for an enterprise, and Anurag, you leave GTS after one day, and that's it. We all create a brand new company. We start tomorrow. We are known. We ourselves as five individuals have great credit records. We have no criminal records. We have none of this, but we start a new business. We want to send traffic and everything, but we have zero history. How long, on a practical note, how long will I be subjected to this throttling for traffic? How long?
Well, so honestly, that part I'm expecting the carriers to define because they take the risk. So, historically for 16 years, we work for the carriers, even though we're integrated directly with some of the largest CPaaS in the world. I'm sorry, I'm going back to premium SMS days, but we implement exactly what the carriers want us to implement because they're the ones that the regulators will go after.
Okay. So
but at the end of the day, here's the other thing.
From what you've seen.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the other thing that we can do, so we have had appeals, for example, in the 10DLC market. And one of the things that we can provide is a very, very deep dive because we have investigators that can look at companies anywhere in the world. And we will do relational deep dives on where have you worked historically, right? Who are your friends? What other companies have you created? And tying anything that we can possibly find, right, that would indicate you're a risk. And on the flip side, we can find things that indicate that you are, a valid person, and the carrier can decide whether or not they want to expand your use. Okay. So to us, it's not a one product thing. And as a matter of fact, within this implementation within the US, we have 3 levels of verification product that are occurring. And it really depends on the type of entity coming in and what kind of throughput are they pursuing.
So Catherine, from a mobile operator perspective and your perspective of BT, take that situation, coming to you as a new potential customer, or could be a supplier, a new potential partner with that trust, and we're a brand new company. How would you approach them from a client perspective in terms of what traffic would you allow them to send through you? And
well, first of all, we'd have to onboard them as a new supplier in BT, so that takes a while. No, all joking aside, I guess that's something that we just have to look at the metrics, and it's ought to be completely transparent. It's not something that I've ever been across really before, but I think we'd have to look at the metrics that are in the industry for things, take advice from the partners that we're working on, what the appropriate response is, and work towards that, I guess. But I think it's something that will definitely become more and more of a conversation as we implement these kind of solutions.
Because we know, well, if we're talking about RBM particularly, it's that speed of onboarding, which is a real issue, and it's been an issue. And I know, at least in the UK now, there's that joint onboarding form, at least, between the operators.
But I think that's the beginning of it. And I think once we see, I mean, the way we're doing it now, if there was 50 RBM campaigns a week, it wouldn't work. So we need to look and see how we can verify this and bring in. And that's something we're talking about in this group that we have with the other operators in the UK, is starting to maybe do some sort of process to think about our requirements for things like this. And this is where these panels come in really handy, from an educational perspective as well, because we learn the kind of things that we need to be thinking about when we move to be verifying hundreds and thousands of campaigns a year, and what kind of protection we need to implement for our customers and also ourselves from any sort of regulatory reputational damage.
Anurag, would you say we are at the point, because it's been talked about a fair bit, that we've got to this tipping point with what single piece of information about an individual is the most important? Is it my ID, national ID number? We don't have a passport number or whatever it might be. Or is it my phone number? Is it my date of birth? Would you say it's fair to say from your perspective that, again, I know that Global Teleservices is a global player, etc., but you're in India, got 1.4 billion people there, that's 20% of the world in one country. Is it fair to say that that person's mobile phone number is the single most important data point for somebody in terms of trust, even if it's the same number for 5 years or whatever it might be?
Definitely, it's a bit scary actually, because what I've noticed is that a number of databases exist today. A lot of them are tied eventually by the MSISDN as the common factor. Today, you can have demographical details, geographical details, socioeconomic details. A lot of these details are available, and eventually everything is tagged to a mobile number. That further adds to the risk of your data, which is today freely available with a lot of intermediaries, sadly. So I guess I'd say that, and there are these other concepts which are becoming very popular, such as marketing automation and MarTech, marketing technology, and AdTech, advertising technology. What are these various platforms doing? They are primarily pulling out information related to your mobile number, mixing and matching it with other pieces of information available. The entire trust aspect, as you were mentioning, James, that our registries, making sure that data privacy is taken care of when data is being recorded. I think sadly today that's really not happening in the way it's supposed to be. So yes, for sure, the MSISDN, the mobile number, is very critical, and today one can easily form what is called a complete online persona of an individual simply by using that person's mobile number, right from where that person's eaten to how much is that person earning as a monthly salary. So that's the level of information tagged to your mobile number, which is readily available today in the market.
Okay, thank you. John, mobile phone numbers, a person's mobile phone number stays with them. Ultimately, mobile network operators own that subscriber relationship, or that last mile, it could be argued. We've got that. So there's a huge amount of information out there about mobile phone number ranges. That's all clear. That's fine. So mobile number ranges are important. But what about domain names? We all know of situations. I can go to a domain name registrar. I can purchase 5,000 domain names, which just happen to be as close to BT or enabled or Aegis or GTS as possible. They'll take my money quite happily, no problem whatsoever, and we'll wonder, well, why would James Williams as an individual want 5,000 domain names and be prepared to pay £10,000 or whatever it might be? No problem at all. Do does anybody on the panel know, or do we, anybody viewing or anybody in the room know, what's going on to lock down that side of things on the domain name registration side of things? Because that's a huge, glaring
we have a
difficulty for verification.
We have a use case. One of the major carriers in the U.S., we're collecting all the reported spam that's coming directly from consumers, if you will, right? And obviously there are URLs coming in that are identified, and we're passing that down, to our friends, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the use cases that came about was that we detected through this process a spammer that had actually registered for 10DLC, that we had a background check on them in our system, right? And that's fine, because they came in as a small company. There was nothing on them. They were fairly new, so they got minimum throughput. So they weren't doing massive volume damage, right? But what they were actually doing is they'd set up a legitimate website where you could get some quotes from legitimate companies for services, but then they were taking the data you put in to get those quotes and selling it to their media companies. So what we did is we did a deep dive. We found the state registrar or the lawyers that created the company. We found out they created 3,000 companies.
Can I ask you, what flagged that up as being a risk? What brought that first to your attention?
There was spam detected that was reported by customers, right?
Sorry, customers reported. Okay.
So from a domain name though perspective, what we wound up doing was deep diving to find out that there was a state registration legal firm that had created tens of thousands of companies, but this particular set of companies owned thousands of URLs, and so we took one URL that was being reported as spam that would have made it down to the filters, and we back engineered hundreds of companies, thousands of URLs, and we were able, and all operating on a few IP addresses, quite frankly, too, but we were able to then provide that to the spam filtering as a much broader, stoppage to what this group had set up, right? And it's because we had information on the company that registered. And then we could, deep dive it. We also found out that they registered through 17 different CPAS, and they, while they had minimum throughput and everything because they were unknown companies, they registered a bunch, right? So again, because there was a registration and we got information on spam being reported, which is why I'm saying Lifecycle is important, we were able to reverse engineer much more filtering that could be provided to our downstream partners to stop the live traffic. That was bad.
Yeah. Carlos, so again, I'll be wrapping this up soon, finishing this up soon. But again, going back to the small, medium-sized players.
Yeah.
So the majority of money that flows around the world that is earned by people they're earned from jobs with small and medium-sized players. They spend the majority of their money with small and medium-sized enterprises. So it's the key driver around the world. So in many parts of the world, talking about the Amazons and other large retailers or whatever, that's a red herring. That's not the real picture in huge parts of the world in any way, shape, or form. When it comes to businesses, and we're here at a messaging event, an omnichannel messaging event, businesses wanting to get into the messaging world, so wanting to move away from simply doing what they've always done, which is maybe send a bit of email and that like that. How do we go about this verification? So you were talking about, Catherine, BT, the verification and the onboarding can take quite a lot of time. Yeah. Getting new accounts for people, again, whom these millions of companies don't have that track record. And in large parts of the world, they may not even have a bank account. Yeah. What can we do as an industry to get these people on board? Because if we make them jump through hoops, if we create such a difficult process for onboarding, we're going to put them off even before they get through the door and see, actually, there's so many channels. How do I approach you? What do I use? So I know it's a tough question, but thank you, board member Wahid Adam. Join MEF first, and enterprises should. This is a really good point. MEF is a perfect place for enterprises to come to learn about messaging, anti-fraud. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think today solutions that are in the market are very much looking at enterprise, like large enterprise, big brands, because maybe they have access to the technology, but also they have the means in terms of how they can pay to get a verified account or verified customers. But when it comes to SMBs, I think the business model should be different, because the SMBs basically, if you verify it, even their end clients, their end customers, I think they can basically be largely motivated to engage with these verified customers. Why? Because if you know that that customer, as we were just discussing, will buying your services or will have interest in topics where you as a brand or you as a SMB could be relevant to this end customer, then probably the SMB will be much more motivated to be part of our verification process where the end subscriber, the end customer is verified and they verify themselves. Why I'm saying this, because this is less, let's say, intrusive for the end client. You know, the SMB can reach out to their hundreds or dozens of customers that are verified. They trust the SMB because it's also been verified by as a good service provider that is basically only addressing customers with relevant offers, the right messaging, the right content for the end subscriber. And the thing is that today, I think there is a huge, as you said, there's a huge market there for SMBs, but the process of how do I verify myself and also verify my end client, it's not accessible at this moment. It's not scalable. I'm not saying it will not be.
I think John may have something to say, but yeah.
Good.
What would you say? What would you say to that?
On November 1st this month for ADP messaging in the U.S. market, hundreds of CPaaS providers registered over 36,000 brands that were successfully onboarded in one day.
Okay.
So the brands were onboarded within a day?
Yes, 36,000 plus.
So I could send something through to you at 9 a.m. and by the end of the working day, as long as
well, no, our identity verifications are happening in 3 seconds or less. The background checks are 15 seconds.
And if something's flagged up for manual inspection?
Yeah, we kick out roughly 2% of what comes in, gets looked at by someone because our algorithms say, not sure that this data source provided the right information to us.
And how long would that take, approx?
It depends on how many we're backed up with, but it's, a day.
Wow. Okay.
Is it
That's good.
country, is it a country effort?
We cover 180 countries automated so far.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, we haven't done Libya because
from country to country.
These are all companies that want to message in the U.S. market, but there's roughly 180 countries that we've successfully processed. So that's APAC region, that's Russia, that's Europe, that's Africa, that's South America. We haven't gotten Libya. But that's just because there were no companies came from Libya. They get
not yet.
onboarded so far.
Exactly. Anurag, final words. I appreciate it's so late with you and really appreciate you joining so late. And final words on this topic. Anything you'd actually like to say about omnichannel as a whole, because this is the last session. You're free to talk about anything you want. Go for it. What would you like to say? Anything?
I wish this was the jury. I think I'll still just stick to this topic. And there's something which is a bit close to my heart, which I feel I would love to see implemented in a market like UK, for example, because I see that, MEF, all of you wonderful people are sitting there right now, and it's the epicenter of a lot of activities within the telecom space overall as well. You have GSMA there as well, for example. I think the regulator, it's important to talk a bit about them also, that they play an important role. Like in India, we had the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, TRAI. Similarly, I feel that maybe Ofcom can play a very large role in this space. I know everyone hates regulations and everyone hates a regulator, bringing their noses into our business. But, eventually, if we were talking about small and medium businesses, now I feel at that point, the telemarketers and the aggregators and the CPaaS players have a role to play. And for large enterprises, directly the operators have a lot of role to play. I think in order to make sure that the operators and these telemarketers act as the right agents of the regulator, it is important to come out with the right regulations around this space, which can then be implemented by these two very apt intermediaries. I call an operator also an intermediary because it's the enterprise and the end user at the two ends. So I feel that the trio of regulator, the aggregators and telemarketers, and your operator can bring in the necessary checks and balances to bring in the trust in the overall CPaaS ecosystem.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anurag. John, final words from you?
Happy holidays, everyone.
Yay. That's it. You know what? I'm going to close on that. I'll take that. Thank you very much. Done. Sorry, Catherine. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, Carlos. Awesome. Any questions? No, great. Any questions online? Yeah. We've lost him already. Man down.
No.
Thank you, Ross. So that's it, folks. That's all. So this was our final session, sponsored by Aegis Mobile. You've seen John Bruner, Catherine Maguire, Carlos Villanueva, and Anurag Agarwal with Globe Teleservices. Anurag, thank you very much. Have a good sleep, sir. Bye. And that's it. Off you go.